Well, hope you had a great start to July. You're watching Weekly News Highlights, where we bring you some of the biggest stories that made the headlines this week. I'm Song Yoo-jin, coming to you from Arirang's virtual studio. We started with Monday night's devastating car crash in downtown Seoul that claimed the lives of at least 9 people. The tragedy has sparked numerous questions, starting with what caused this fatal accident. Moving into the latter half of 2024, the Finance Ministry unveiled its economic blueprint for the rest of the year. We look closely into the government's assessment of the domestic economy and the key areas they aim to improve to better the lives of the general public. Finally, the race to the White House is heating up. With just under 4 months to go until America decides, President Joe Biden is under mounting pressure, even from within his party, to reconsider his candidacy. New opinion polls this week reveal troubling news for Biden in his potential rematch with former President Donald Trump. At least 9 people died and 7 others were injured after a car plowed into pedestrians near Seoul City Hall Station on Monday night. The police on Thursday conducted their first interrogation of the driver, with the driver reiterating his claim that sudden unintended acceleration caused the accident. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
Police in Seoul have conducted their first interrogation on the driver behind the deadly car crash that killed 9 and injured 7 others near City Hall on Monday night. The questioning took place on Thursday at Seoul National University Hospital, where the driver is being treated with 4 investigators and a lawyer present. During the 2-hour interview, the driver reiterated his initial statement that it was a sudden unintended acceleration that caused the deadly accident. According to the 68-year-old driver, surnamed Cha, he tried to step on the brakes, but it was stiff and could not be pushed down. As Cha is still recovering from his injuries, the police plan to continue questioning at a later date. Additional investigations will be conducted to inquire about the basis for determining sudden unintended acceleration, whether there were any abnormalities during the vehicle operation, and why the driver was driving in the wrong direction in the first place. It has been confirmed that the driver had begun accelerating from the time he left a hotel parking lot, so he's also expected to be asked about the reason for speeding at the time. On top of that, the police will question Cha over why he drove towards a group of pedestrians on the sidewalk. Police also say that based on an ongoing analysis of the sedan's event data recorder, the suspect significantly pressed the accelerator shortly before the accident. They also discovered that the secondary brake light did not light up during the accident and that no skid marks were found at the scene, contradicting the driver's claim of having applied the brakes. A Seoul court on Wednesday denied an arrest warrant request by the police, saying that he has no reason to evade police question, as he's currently hospitalized and under police protection for his personal safety. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Shifting focus, North Korea fired 2 ballistic missiles on Monday. The next day, Tuesday, the regime claimed this was a successful new tactical missile test, while South Korea's military disputed this, suggesting it might be a fabrication. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung provides an analysis of the conflicting narratives.
North Korea on Tuesday morning claimed that it successfully tested a new type of tactical ballistic missile carrying a 4.5-ton super-large warhead the day before. This is the first time that the North has said it tested such a missile. The North state-run media said that the test of the new missile, named Hwasongpo 11 Ta 4.5, was conducted with a mock warhead aimed at verifying flight stability and accuracy to see if it can fly a maximum range of 500 kilometers and minimum range of 90 kilometers. South Korea's military, however, dismissed the North's claim, calling it a deception. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the regime launched 2 ballistic missiles, one which flew some 600 kilometers into the sea, and the other which traveled only 120 kilometers. The military once again suggested that the second launch was abnormal and appeared to have fallen in a field in an uninhabited area near the North's capital.
It is extremely rare to conduct a test launch inland, and there is a high possibility that its claim of success is a lie.
Last week, North Korea claimed a successful test of a new multi-warhead missile, contrasting with South Korea's assessment of a failure after a mid-air explosion. The regime's continued claims that appear to be false reveal that the North is trying to cover up its series of military failures, beginning with the recently failed launch of its spy satellite. An expert says the contradicting claims by the 2 Koreas have always been present.
When we take a look at past cases with regard to the success of these missile launches, North Korea treats even the smallest success as a great one, while our military assesses North Korea's small failures as major failures. This is being repeated to this day.
Meanwhile, more missile launches are expected as Pyongyang said it will carry out another test launch of the same type of missile this month to test the accuracy and the explosion power of the super-large warhead. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
And on the same day that the North claimed its successful missile test, the South Korean Army resumed live-fire artillery drills near the border with North Korea for the first time in 6 years. The South Korean military announced that the Army carried out firing drills using K-9 self-propelled artillery units, among others, in Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces. Now, this is the first time such an exercise has taken place within 5 kilometers of the military demarcation line since the Inter-Korean military agreement was signed in 2018. Early last month, Seoul suspended all clauses of the agreement following North Korea's continued provocations, including sending balloons carrying waste over the border. Staying with North Korea, the regime's leader Kim Jong-un visited a munitions factory on Tuesday following a 4-day ruling Workers' Party Central Committee. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil has a wrap-up of Kim's visit and the key points from the party meeting.
After wrapping up a key political meeting, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Tuesday visited a munitions factory and other manufacturing sites along with senior officials of the party's leadership. North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported on Wednesday that Kim visited the National Defense Industrial Enterprise and observed production lines there. The enterprise is known to produce munitions including 240mm shells for multiple launch rocket systems. Kim's visit to the weapons facility could be in line with his emphasis not only on enhancing the regime's self-defense capabilities, but also to take advantage of Russia's war with Ukraine, as Pyongyang and Moscow have been bolstering ties through arms transfers. The visit also came shortly after the 4-day meeting of the Workers' Party Central Committee, which started on Friday. There, Kim emphasized the North's accomplishments in the first half of the year, stating that the economy was in a clear upturn. An official at South Korea's Ministry of Unification said on Tuesday that what is striking from this meeting is that there was no mention of diplomatic achievements or messages to South Korea and the U.S.
It's possible the North was aware that it could be subjected to international condemnation if it puts too much emphasis on its achievements in defense and diplomacy. I think Kim's intention of only stressing economic agendas is to strengthen the regime by bringing up sectors directly linked to people's livelihoods.
The Unification Ministry official also said the regime may hold a standing committee ahead of the Supreme People's Assembly and discuss constitutional amendments.
It's highly possible that North Korea would strike out the phrase in its Constitution Article 9 that says the North would strive to reunify the country on the principle of independence, peaceful reunification, and great national unity.
The Unification Ministry official said the government will keep a close eye on what direction the regime is taking. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
On the domestic front, one of Korea's most pressing issues nowadays is the sharply declining birth rate, with related figures hitting fresh lows and President Yoon Suk-yeol declaring it as a state of emergency. Now, this week, the government outlined its action plan, that is, launching a new ministry dedicated to addressing the low birth rate and aging population. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young has more on what this new ministry will focus on.
Following high-level meetings with the ruling party, the government announced plans on Monday morning to create a new ministry called the Ministry of Population Strategy Planning, focused on tackling the country's falling birth rate. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol declared a national emergency last month as the number of newborns in the country continues to fall and vowed to make every effort to handle the issue. The birth rate dropped to 0.72 in 2023, the lowest in the world. The new ministry will be in charge of creating strategies not only to boost the birth rate, but also for overpopulation issues.
The ministry has been named the Ministry of Population Strategy Planning to cover all aspects of population policy, including low birth rates, an aging society, workforce and immigration.
The ministry will be in charge of formulating policies regarding the low birth rate and related mid to long-term population strategies, taking over the responsibilities currently held by the Health and Finance ministries. Once established, it will have the authority to review budgets and consult with other ministries on related projects. The ministry will also enhance public awareness through campaigns on population issues and conduct research and analysis on demographic data. The head of the ministry will also serve as the country's deputy prime minister for social affairs, currently served by the education minister. The government plans to propose a revised Government Organization Act within July to establish the ministry. It expects the new ministry to begin operations about 3 months after the revision bill is passed, following necessary procedures such as personnel recruitment, budget allocation, and a parliamentary confirmation hearing for the minister. The Presidential Committee on Aging Society and Population Policy will also be transferred to the new ministry under a new name, the Committee on Population Crisis Response. 신하영, Arirang News.
On the economic front, thanks to robust performance in the semiconductor sector, South Korea is continuing to see on-year growth for exports. According to the Trade Ministry on Monday, exports for June increased by 5.1% compared to the year before, reaching $57 billion. Now, this is largely attributed to a strong performance by the chip industry, with the country's largest export item seeing a record high figure of $13.4 billion, up more than 50% on year. Higher memory chip prices and demand for server-centered industries pulled up the growth. With strong exports, the country's trade balance stayed firmly in the positive territory, logging an $8 billion surplus compared to the year before. The South Korean government on Wednesday announced its economic policy direction for the second half of the year. And while the economic growth projection was revised upwards, the average citizen is yet to feel that the economy is getting better. In acknowledging this, the government is focusing its policy measures on small business owners. So for more on what was announced for our weekly focus this week, we have our finance correspondent Lee Soo-jin with us today. Soo-jin, so my first question for you is, what does the government say when it comes to its most recent projections about the economy?
Well, in short, it's quite positive across the board. The government releases economic policy direction based on revised economic projections for economic growth, inflation, employment, and current account balance. And on Wednesday, the Finance Ministry announces economic policy direction for the latter half of the year, where it revises economic growth projection for 2024 from 2.2% to 2.6%. This upward revision was mostly due to a strong growth forecast for exports thanks to increased demand for AI as well as semiconductors. And the inflation rate was projected at 2.6%. This comes as data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday showed that the country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, rose by 2.4% in June compared to the same month the year before. This is the lowest figure seen in 11 months, inching closer to the target inflation at 2%. And as for employment, the government projects that as the economy shows signs of recovery, it will go up by more than 60% on year. And this year, South Korea is expected to see a current account surplus of $63 billion as exports continue to recover. Let's take a listen to what the president said about the current state of the economy.
이렇게 성장률을 비롯한 거시 지표는 눈에 띄게 개선되고 있습니다만 아직 그 온기가 민생 경제의 활력으로 이어지지 않아 안타까운 마음이 있습니다. 효과가 나타나는 시차를 줄이면서 민생의 구조적, 근본적 문제를 해결해 나가야 합니다.
So despite the positive outlook, there are still areas of concern. So what are the other areas of focus?
Well, this time the focus is on vulnerable groups. The government said that while the newly revised projections for the second half are promising, vulnerable groups have yet to feel that the economy is getting better. Here's what the finance minister said on this.
But because the recovery speed varies across sectors due to high inflation and interest rates, small business owners still feel that the economy is struggling.
To help small business owners, the government will spend 25 trillion won, or nearly $18 billion to provide financial support, business growth, and recovery opportunities, as well as a one-stop platform that allows them to more easily access necessary information. This includes an extension of government loan maturity, which, according to an expert, will prove to be the most helpful. Let's take a listen.
I think the most effective way is postponing interest rate payment to banks. In terms of the moral hazard problem, it is very difficult to decrease size of the money that borrowed from the banks. But instead, there is small room for banks and for medium and small-sized companies to delay their interest rate payment.
And the government plans to raise the upper annual revenue limit for businesses to receive electricity bill subsidies from around $21,000 to around $43,000. The government will also help small business owners expand digitally to accelerate their growth. And by the end of this year, there will be nearly 60 traditional markets where products are also available online. As for measures to help business owners get back on their feet, it plans to offer monetary incentives each month for small business owners that were forced to close, to attend re-employment programs, or to start new businesses. Lastly, it plans to create a one-stop platform where small business owners can find important information regarding their finances, employment, and businesses in one place, with the finalized version being in operation in January next year.
Last but not least, Soo-jin, I want to ask you, are there any measures directed towards maintaining the trend of getting prices under control?
Right, so the government plans to remain vigilant, which is evident by how much it's willing to spend to stabilize prices. The support measures to get prices under control in the second half of the year amount to around $4 billion. This includes implementing tariff quota rates for 51 items such as vegetables and fruits, which will allow for lower tariff rates on imports of products within a certain quantity, as well as expanding contract farming of fruits and developing more kim or seaweed farms. Here's why these continued efforts to tame inflation are necessary.
The general citizens in Korea do not feel that the economy is getting better these days because inflation is higher than that of their wage increases. But as the inflation is stabilizing by end of this year, I think Korean people will see that the economic situation gets better. The prices of the agricultural products is pretty much stabilized from last month.
So with these pan-governmental efforts, people will hopefully soon be able to feel that the economy is in fact getting better, and that is not just the data.
All right, thank you for your report today, Soo-jin. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Over in the United States, President Joe Biden is under mounting pressure after last month's shaky performance in the televised debate against former President Donald Trump. He's now working to convince both voters and his own party that he's still the right person for the job. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
A report by the New York Times Wednesday led to a wave of speculation that U.S. President Joe Biden was considering dropping out of running for a second term. Headlined, Biden told ally that he is weighing whether to continue in the race. It seemed as if Biden was unsure if he could carry on after his subpar performance during a televised debate with Donald Trump. The article, however, was misleading, with no reference to Biden explicitly saying he would not run again. Rather, the report was based on a conversation between Biden and an unnamed key ally, who was quoted as saying that the president knew he needed to quickly reassure the public he can still do the job. That did not stop the speculation, leading the White House to reiterate that the president is still working towards his goal of staying in office for another 4 years.
What I can say is the president is moving forward. He's moving forward as being president. He's moving forward with his campaign, as his campaign has been very, very clear about that. That's what I can speak to, and that's what I can say, and that is the president's focus. The president's focus is how does he continue to do that work, and anything else that we're hearing or that's being reported is absolutely false.
However, pressure continues within the Democratic Party as another Democrat lawmaker called on Biden to resign. Speaking to the New York Times in an interview, Congressman Raul Grijalva, who represents Arizona, said he would support Biden if he remains at the top of the ticket, but said he believes the party should select a new nominee. The remarks come just one day after Lloyd Doggett became the first sitting Democrat lawmaker to call on Biden to withdraw from the race. An opinion poll conducted by the New York Times and Siena College also showed Trump's approval rating widening after last week's debate. Among likely voters, 49% said they would vote for Trump, as opposed to 43% of respondents who said they would still vote for Biden. This marks a 3 percentage point upswing for Trump from a week earlier. Additionally, among registered voters, 49% said they would vote for the former president, while 41% said they would vote for the incumbent. 74% of respondents also said that Biden is too old for the job, up 5 percentage points since the debate. 이승재, Arirang News.
In sports news, the world is just a few weeks away from the highly anticipated Paris 2024 Summer Olympics, the first post-pandemic games. Around 10,500 athletes from 206 countries will compete in 32 sports across 329 disciplines. South Korea is set to send 142 athletes and 110 officials in 22 sports, with high hopes for medals in archery, fencing, swimming, taekwondo, weightlifting, shooting, and judo. To help athletes perform at their best, Korea's Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism will set up a base camp at the National Sports Center of La Défense in Fontainebleau, providing accommodation, training facilities, and medical services from July 12th to August 11th to help athletes get used to the new environment before entering the athletes' village. Badminton, boxing, and judo athletes will have their training partners there to help them prepare. The first group of staff members departed for Paris on Friday, with the rest scheduled to travel next Tuesday.
The number of Team Korea athletes is around 140, the smallest since the 1976 Montreal Olympics, which is unfortunate. But I remain hopeful. I'm confident that our athletes will deliver outstanding performances in Paris.
In other Olympic-related news, BTS member Jin will participate as a torchbearer for Paris 2024. According to the group's management agency HYBE, Jin will carry the torch across various historic sites in France, though the specific schedule has not yet been announced. And it's not just the Olympics that's stirring excitement. This year, Korea is catching baseball fever with the domestic KBO League set to break records for stadium attendance. Our An Sung-jin explores the reason why.
Screams and shouts echo around the stadium. Any South Korean ballpark will make you want to get up on your feet to join the cheering crowd. Baseball has been known as having a relatively older fan base, with the average fan being in their 50s. But over the past few years, a particular trend stands out. It's the increasing number of younger fans and female fans that come to watch the game.
I think I come here to enjoy the delicious food and cheer with other people. The cheering culture is well developed, so you get to have fun with your friends.
I think people are interested because the cheering culture is so well developed.
I would agree on the cheering culture, but also new TV shows on baseball are trending these days, so I think that also boosts the popularity.
The KBO Korean Baseball League looks set to see a record-high 10 million stadium goers by the end of the season. And according to a major ticket office for the league, 4 out of 10 audience members are in their 20s, which is nearly double what it was in 2019. And more than half of the audience is female.
South Korean baseball is well known for its unique fan culture with cheering squads and a repertoire of fan chants. With the addition of younger fans, it makes the ballpark more dynamic and an enjoyable experience.
Then what attracts this younger age group? An official says there's more to Korean baseball than its outstanding cheering culture.
As we work with more OTT services such as YouTube as well as Instagram, fans get to enjoy more of our content. There are also many content creators that the Korean Baseball League has to compete with, so we plan to develop more sports content that captures not only young fans but other age groups too.
With the vibrant cheering culture attracting more and more fans, an afternoon at the ballpark looks to be one of the hottest tickets in town. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And that's all we have for this edition of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching, and on behalf of all of us here at Arirang, we hope you have a great rest of the weekend.